The mutate function from the Dplyr package lets you change, add, or remove columns in a table. If you want to add a column, like we're going to do here, you have to write a name for the new column, followed by an equals then sign, and then the code to generate the values that you want to store in the new column. You can generate the values from scratch, but you can also use an existing column to generate the values. And that's what we do here. And when you use an existing column, again, you just write the name of the column, no quotes, no dollar signs. You can generate multiple columns at the same time by separating them with a comma, and R will process them from left to right. So he will first generate this new column, and then he will generate this one. So that means that here in the second column that will be generated, you can use the values that were generated previously in the first column, but not vice versa. So in the first line of code, I'm going to use mutate to add a new column to the empty cars data frame, column called ID. And as you can see here, I'm generating the values that I want to store in that new column from scratch by just defining a vector with the values that I want to store. And I'm going to store the end result, so the data frame that is the result of the mutate function, in a new variable called empty cars2. So when I run this code, you see that empty cars2 is generated, and when I take a look, it indeed contains a column called ID with the values that I generated. You can use mutate also to remove columns from a data frame. So here in this example, I'm going to remove the ID column from empty cars2. How do I do this? Well, by setting it equal to null. And I'm saving the result back in empty cars2. So when I run this code and I take a look, you see that the ID column has disappeared. In the third line of code, I'm using the mutate function to generate a new column in the empty cars data frame. I give that column a name, and you see that this time I'm going to calculate the values that I want to store in that column based on the values that are present in an existing column of empty cars. So when I look at empty cars, which is the same as empty cars2, you see that it contains a column called weight, WT. So I'm going to use the values in this column in a calculation, and the result of that calculation will be stored in this new column that I'm generating. So when I run this code, you see that indeed he has generated that new column that contains values that are the result of this calculation using the values in the existing WT column. In the next line of code, I'm going to generate two new columns. You can see that here. In the first new column, I'm going to use the values from the existing WT column to generate new values and store them in the new column. And in the second column, I am using the values that were generated in the first new column. You see? So when I do this, you see that he nicely generates these two new columns that I asked for. And as always, it's more than one column, so I separate them with a comma. Now, because R processes these new columns from left to right, so first he creates this one, it comes first, and then he creates this one, this comes next. You cannot swap the order of these two columns. That's what I do here. Yeah. So now this one comes first and then this one. So when I run this code, you see that he throws an error because he says, hey, this column here with this name does not exist. So you cannot use it here to create values to store in this new column.